Okay. Whoops. Changes to our understanding of the Constitution. So while amending the Constitution is the only way to change it, the interpretation of its meaning has changed over time. Wait, that's the wrong way we're starting. Okay, amending the Constitution. The amendment process allows the Constitution to be adapted as times change. Amendments may be proposed by a 2/3 vote in the House and Senate, or by 2/3 of the states asking for a convention. So let me repeat that because I know that's a lot of words together. Amendments may be proposed, so changes to the Constitution can be proposed by a 2/3 vote in Congress, or by 2/3 of the states asking for it. A proposed amendment must be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislators, or by 3/4 of states through ratifying conventions. Congress sets a time limit within which ratification must be completed. Ratification is approval. So they set a time limit for approval. Of the more than 11,000 proposed amendments, only 27 have actually been ratified. So the Bill of Rights, through the incorporation doctrine, almost all of the provisions of the National Bill of Rights have been incorporated into the states by court cases. You guys see how many emails I get. The First Amendment guarantees basic freedoms. The second ensures the right to security. A lot of people know that as the right to bear arms. And the third and fourth protect the homes and privacy of citizens. The Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth Amendments protect people accused of crimes. The Ninth Amendment states that rights not named are kept by the people, and the 10th says that powers not given to the federal government belong to the states or the people. 7 of the later amendments modify the structure of the government or the powers of the different branches. 2 amendments gave the government more power, but one of these was repealed by a later amendment. 7 amendments extend individual rights, particularly the right to vote. So while amending the Constitution is the only way to change it, the interpretation of its meaning has changed over time. As modern presidents have extended their power, their role in government has grown. So the role of the executive branch has actually increased from what the founders had originally intended. Federal courts interpret the Constitution, and changes in judges and in social and political conditions can affect these interpretations. The fact that portions of the Constitution are written in language that leaves room for interpretation and adaptation has helped the Constitution survive. So they say that the Constitution is a living document. What that means is that it can be changed, and that because they leave room for interpretation, we can change our thoughts on what it means. So now let's look at, where's that thing I opened? Here it is. Let me see if I can make this bigger. I can. All right, so these are the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are your first 10 amendments. So Amendment 1 says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's a lot of rights within one amendment. So this amendment protects the civil liberties of individuals. The amendment freedoms are not absolute, and they are limited by the rights of other individuals. So my rights end where your rights begin. So if I have the freedom of speech, I can talk crap about Tymetris until I start to affect her character, until I start to make other people believe that she's a terrible person, and then she can sue me for slander. So my rights end where her rights begin. Amendment 2, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That comes from the British government saying that Americans should not be able to defend themselves prior to the American Revolution. Amendment 3, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered, which means housed, in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So the British government used to knock on people's doors in the colonies and be like, hey, you're housing these soldiers. They're going to live here now. You're going to feed them. You're going to do their laundry. You're going to take care of them. And they couldn't say no. Imagine the government just knocking on your door and saying, here, these people live here with you now. I'd be pretty upset. Amendment 4, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. I cannot say these S words today. Shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So this provides for the search and seizure. This is the warrant, where they have to have a warrant that gives your full name. They give you what they're going to search on the warrant. And they tell you what they're looking for on the warrant. Amendment 5, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. So that means that if you are tried for murder, say, of a person, and you're acquitted, they let you go. They can't then come back and say, no, we're going to put you on trial again because we think you really did it. They've already proven that you haven't done it. So it's called double jeopardy. There is a movie about double jeopardy. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So this also makes sure that you do not incriminate yourself on the stand. So that's why if they ask you a question and you feel like your answer will incriminate you or make it seem like you're guilty, you can say, I plead the fifth. I'm not going to answer that. What else? Due process of law. You have to be seen in court. If you are arrested, you have to be put in front of a judge. Amendment 6. All criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the rights to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. So you have the right to face your accuser, basically. You have the right to know why you've been arrested or why you're being put on trial. You have the right to be confronted with the witnesses that are saying, no, you totally did it. And you have the right to get your own witnesses or have a lawyer to get those witnesses. It says you have the right to counsel for your defense. So you have the right to a lawyer. My goodness. And you have the right to a speedy and public trial. Now, speedy depends on the state. Just FYI. In suits, no, Amendment 7, in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall otherwise be re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. So basically, you can't be tried twice. Amendment 8, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So they can't pull out your fingernails in jail. Pull out your fingernails. Huh?
What I mean?
Pull out your fingernails.
Oh.
Torture. That's a torture. And they also should not, like, unless it's like a severe crime that they really don't want you to get out of jail for, like you've murdered like 2 million people, bail should not be excessive. Amendment 9 should not be excessive. Doesn't mean it won't be, but should not be. Amendment 9, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So the rights are your own. This amendment prevents government from claiming that the only rights people have are those listed in the Bill of Rights. And then the last amendment of the Bill of Rights. The power is not delegated to the states by the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So anything not mentioned here can be done by the state. And so the last thing that I have for you guys is a video. All right.
When it was ratified in 1789, the U.S. Constitution didn't just institute a government by the people. It provided a way for the people to alter the Constitution itself. And yet, of the nearly 11,000 amendments proposed in the centuries since, only 27 have succeeded as of 2016. So what is it that makes the Constitution so hard to change? In short, its creators. The founders of the United States were trying to create a unified country from 13 different colonies, which needed assurance that their agreements couldn't be easily undone. So here's what they decided. For an amendment to even be proposed, it must receive a 2/3 vote of approval in both houses of Congress, or a request from 2/3 of state legislatures to call a national convention. And that's just the first step. To actually change the Constitution, the amendment must be ratified by 3/4 of all states.
Remember, that means
to do
approve.
this, each state can either have its legislature vote on the amendment, or it can hold a separate ratification convention with delegates elected by voters. The result of such high thresholds is that today, the American Constitution is quite static. Most other democracies pass amendments every couple of years. The US, on the other hand, hasn't passed one since 1992. At this point, you may wonder how any amendments manage to pass at all. The first 10, known as the Bill of Rights, include some of America's most well-known freedoms, such as the freedom of speech and the right to a fair trial. These were passed all at once to resolve some conflicts from the original Constitutional Convention. Years later, the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, as well as the 14th and 15th Amendments, only passed after a bloody civil war. Ratifying amendments has also become harder as the country has grown larger and more diverse. The first ever proposed amendment, a formula to assign congressional representatives, was on the verge of ratification in the 1790s. However, as more and more states joined the Union, the number needed to reach the 3/4 mark increased as well, leaving it unratified to this day. Today, there are many suggested amendments, including outlawing the burning of the flag, limiting congressional terms, or even repealing the Second Amendment. While many enjoy strong support, their likelihood of passing is slim. Americans today are the most politically polarized since the Civil War, making it nearly impossible to reach a broad consensus. In fact, the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia once calculated that due to America's representative system of government, it could take as little as 2% of the total population to block an amendment. Of course, the simplest solution would be to make the Constitution easier to amend by lowering the thresholds required for proposal and ratification. That, however, would require its own amendment. Instead, historical progress has mainly come from the U.S. Supreme Court, which has expanded its interpretation of existing constitutional laws to keep up with the times. Considering that Supreme Court justices are unelected and serve for life once appointed, this is far from the most democratic option. Interestingly, the founders themselves may have foreseen this problem early on. In a letter to James Madison, Thomas Jefferson wrote that laws should expire every 19 years, rather than having to be changed or repealed, since every political process is full of obstacles that distort the will of the people. Although he believed that the basic principles of the Constitution would endure, he stressed that the earth belongs to the living and not to the dead.
All right, make sure you complete your reading essentials. The discussion question And the quiz and the Edgenuity module for